Hello everybody, Sandy Hannum again, and we are still on habits. And so this is our third night of talking about habits. So the first night we talked about what are habits? How can we create them? And last night we really spent some time thinking about our identity. What does our identity and how we feel about ourselves at a deep level have to do with our habits? If we don't believe in ourselves, it's hard to create powerful, positive habits. So I encourage you to go back and read those two, or watch those two videos if you haven't had an opportunity to do that. Tonight we're going to talk about boundaries. And before I forget I've been referencing a couple books. The first night I referenced Atomic Habits by James Clear. As you can see, those of you that know me, so I've got it all marked up, and this is an amazing book if you really want to just think about tiny changes. And then Jen Sincero has got a great book called Badass Habits, and I'm working my way through this book as well, where she gives you kind of actions for an action step a day. So I've been working on those two things. But so what do boundaries have to do with habits? That's what we're going to talk about today. I used to just think that a habit was just an action. A habit was a behavior. And that is true. But there's so much more to think about when we're thinking about habits. How do we think about ourselves? How do we think about the world around us? All of those things have to do with how successful we're going to be at achieving our habits. Now, I have been in the helping profession since 1982, since I left college. Yes, I'm really that old. But first I was working in healthcare, and now I am working in homeless services, where I work with families who are experiencing homelessness. So anybody that has been in those kinds of professions know that boundaries are really important. And I'm not going to lie, I've had trouble balancing my really deep compassion for humanity, for human dignity, for kids that are homeless. When you have that much compassion, sometimes boundaries get wishy-washy. And so for me, it's been a journey of balancing that deep compassion with boundaries. And I used to think that boundaries and habits weren't necessarily connected. They are. Our identity is connected to our habits. Our boundaries are connected to our habits. So I have to tell you, I'm getting pretty good at boundaries, balancing boundaries these days. So let's talk about habits. So habits define who we want to be, who we want to become, the actions that we're going to do. So a habit sits on one side, but boundaries define that space. And that really said something to me. So who am I going to be in this space? Sets up my boundaries, sets up your boundaries. And it requires you, who are you going to be in that box, right? In that space. And so that really helped me separate how am I going to react. It almost gave me permission to really set some boundaries, to put things in a container. And I think that you will find that will be helpful for you too. So let's go back. So habits are who we're going to be. or who we want to become. But boundaries define that space. The space that you require, the space that I require, in order for us to be who we're becoming. If we want to eat healthy, but we don't have a good boundary about what kind of food comes into our house, or when we go out to eat, if we don't have a good boundary for letting other people talk us into certain kinds of things, we're not able to really be in that space. So I hope that really helps as we're kind of thinking. The other thing that really helped me as I was thinking about boundaries is that we're responsible to other people. And sometimes, yes, we're responsible for other people, certainly. But there's a whole lot of people that we sometimes feel responsible for that we're not necessarily responsible for. So that's the other thing that I want you to think about when we're thinking about boundaries, is that we're responsible to, but we don't have to take on the whole world. Now, habits are patterns, right? They're behaviors. And the more things that we can do automatic, right? Make it so simple that you can't say no. That's my motto. But boundaries also set up a pattern for habits. And so if we help our habits, if we help ourselves by really putting boundaries around how we're going to be, or what do we need to be, that really has helped me kind of define that. So people ask a lot. So what happens, let's say you're setting up boundaries, and people that you're close to, people that you love, you're becoming on this journey, and you've set up these boundaries, but people close to you don't support it. And that, I'm going to be honest with you, that will happen. Because as you change, as you look at the world differently, as you look at yourself differently, as you set up containers, other people are going to have to change. And we don't like change, right? It makes us uncomfortable. And so if you have always done a certain thing, because it's just what you do, and now you decide, in order for me to be, or in order for me to become, I can't do this anymore. That's a boundary. People aren't going to like that. But that is okay. When we grow, when we change, when we start interacting with ourselves and with other people in a different way, it is going to make people uncomfortable. And so you're kind of forcing them to change how they react. But I think it's also really important to help them say, I'm not forcing you to change. You don't have to, but you have to respect my journey. One of the things that I often say to people who are in the process of changing and moving is that really what you're doing is showing yourself and other people that it can be done. So when we think about boundaries and we think about change, this example is it's called crabs in a bucket. And I have been told that when you have a crab bucket out in the ocean, they don't have a lid. And the reason why they don't have a lid is because they don't need one. So crabs will go in, they'll eat all the food, and then when all the food is gone, they're like, well, one crab gets the idea to say, okay, well, I'm going to, there's nothing here to do, I'm going to go. Well, the other people are like, no, you're not. I don't want to climb out of the crab bucket. I kind of like it down here. It's warm, it's dark, so I don't want to go, but I don't want you to go, so you have to stay. So they'll pull that crab down, they'll pull that crab, they'll break its claws, they will kill it. And sometimes I feel like we have to take stock about who are the crabs in our bucket. Are we allowing people to be afraid? Because if you've done it, you've proven that it can be done. And so I want you to think about that as you go on your journey. You're an example to yourself and to other people that change and growth is really possible. And so I want you to take that on your journey and to really think about boundaries and putting space around what you need to become and what you need to be. So tomorrow we are going to spend some time talking about habits and picking a habit and kind of why we want to choose the habits that we choose. There's no right or wrong way, right? We don't have to put any pressure on ourselves to do that. But I also want to remind you that in the description, I have put a link to a blog post. And in that blog post, I have resources that you guys can grab for free. I've written an ebook about habits, and I've also written a workbook that goes with the ebook. And I've also written a worksheet on some daily habits. And so go to that blog, grab those resources, and I just invite you to work through that workbook and let me know what you think. Let me know if there's a question on that worksheet, on that workbook that inspires you or you get a haha moment. I would love to have you drop that in the comment section and we can have some comments about it. Nobody wants to go through this journey alone, right? And so as we're all working towards becoming who we want to become and to see our potential, it's great to be all together while we're doing that. So please have an amazing night, and I will see you here on the Power of You Facebook page tomorrow night. Have a great evening, everybody.